The Terminator from 1984. Welcome back, everybody, and welcome if you're new. I apologize for the long wait on this video. It has taken me forever to get it done. I've really been chipping away at this for weeks now, but it's finally here, for better or for worse. And needless to say, this is a pretty big movie. It is one of the cornerstones of 1980s science fiction. And personally, I'd say it's one of the greatest movies of all time. And I know that a lot of people would say that the sequel is much better. And I wouldn't even necessarily argue with that, because Terminator 2 is amazing. But even if you think it's better, I would say don't overlook the first one. It's outstanding also. And T2 might be the better overall movie. I think it's certainly the better action movie. But I'd argue that the original Terminator is the better science fiction movie. It's also more of a horror movie than most people realize. It's got a lot of horror tropes in it. Most notably the fact that the Terminator keeps getting up after it has seemingly been defeated, which is something you see in any Halloween movie or Friday the 13th. You know, this is something that, Malibu's Most Wanted pointed out in the first Scream movie. It happens all the time. But there's a lot to cover with this one, so I say we just get started. The Terminator from 1984, directed by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Michael Biehn. The movie opens up in the future, Los Angeles 2029, which is not that far off. We'll be there in 3 years. So yay. And there's a battle going on. Laser shots are going back and forth. Machines are wreaking havoc. And some exposition appears on screen in the form of a text crawl. It says, "The machines rose from the ashes of the nuclear fire. Their war to exterminate mankind had raged for decades, but the final battle would not be fought in the future. It would be fought here, in our present, tonight." So, that's a pretty cool opening. I think all the scenes that depict the actual war are pretty amazing. And the opening credits begin, along with the famous Terminator theme song by Brad Fiedel. And now we're in Los Angeles in 1984 at 12:52 a.m., which is very specific. And a flash of lightning appears near a dump truck, and a naked Arnold Schwarzenegger appears as the Terminator for the first time. And he is butt-ass naked. He really is. We'll soon find out that there's a reason for that, but it is a little jarring when you first watch it. Like, why is this character being introduced like this? And he starts walking around, and there's a shot where, you can't really see any full frontal nudity, but something is swinging back and forth. And it looks substantial. It looks like it's got some weight to it. So good for Arnold. He really did hit the genetic lottery in more ways than one. And I guess this means, that Terminators are fully functional. So that's nice. And he walks up to a few delinquents, one of whom is played by a young Bill Paxton. And he's got a tire tread on his face. I hope that's not meant to be a permanent tattoo for this character. He's clearly made some poor choices in his life. And the other punk is played by this guy. I should have looked up his name before I started this video, but I didn't. I'm sure you've seen him before. He was the bad guy in the movie Cobra with Sylvester Stallone. He was also in The X-Files. He's been in a million things. And they think that this is just some guy who's crazy and walking around naked. Bill Paxton says he looks like he's a couple of cans short of a six-pack. And the Terminator demands their clothes. And they've had just about enough of this guy. One of them pulls a knife, and the Terminator makes quick work of all of them. He even impales one of them by punching him. And the remaining guy complies by giving up his clothes, which you would at this point. And they often say Bill Paxton is the only actor to be killed by a Terminator a predator, and a xenomorph from Aliens. And that's kind of true. But you could make the argument that he doesn't actually die in this movie. I mean, the Terminator slams him up against this like fence, and he falls to the ground, and he doesn't get up. But it definitely seems like something that he could have survived. It doesn't seem like he's been confirmed dead. And the other actor that has been killed by a Terminator, a Predator, and an Alien is Lance Henriksen. And, we'll get to that when we get to that as well. And there's another nude arrival in a dark alleyway. Kyle Reese appears. And he has a much rougher landing than the Terminator. He gets slammed down onto the cold concrete. It can't be pleasant. Unless you're into that sort of thing, of course. And Reese finds himself in front of a drunk man who appears to be homeless. And what does he do? He steals this guy's pants. And the drunk guy appears to have put up very little fight over it. And I don't want to disparage the drunk or the homeless. But the man seems very unclean. I would not put his pants on. And if I did, I would make sure that I at least had some underwear on first. I mean, what if this guy has crabs or something, I mean, personally, I'd rather go naked, to be honest. I'd rather be embarrassed than get crabs from the pants of a drunk homeless man. But that's just me. That's just my, my germophobia outweighs my modesty. I mean, there is a visible stain on the back of those pants. We can only hope it's an outside stain and not something that occurred on the inside of the pants and bled through. That's all I'm saying. And believe it or not, we're going to come back to this. I have more to say on Reese's stolen, dirty pants. And some police see Reese and they start chasing him. He ends up getting the drop on one of them, and he steals his gun, and he demands to know what day it is. The cop says it's the 12th of May. I don't know why that portion didn't appear when it said it was LA, 1984, 12:52 a.m. Like, they left out the date, I guess specifically for this scene. And Reese asks what year it is. So he's not even totally sure when he is. It really seems like time travel is not at all an exact science in the world of the Terminator. And he ends up fleeing into some sort of department store. He steals a trench coat and some Nikes. And I'm not a sneaker aficionado by any means, but these are pretty cool shoes. And they're called Nike Vandals. And if you have a pair from this era, they're probably a collector's item. And surely this is an opportunity for Reese to steal some new pants, right? I mean, there's got to be a pair in this department store somewhere. But Reese doesn't do that. He loves his stinky-ass dysentery pants. And he makes his way out by running up an escalator, and a cop looks at the escalator and moves on. I mean, obviously, he couldn't have gone that way, right? The escalator isn't even on. So how could he have done it? And Reese makes it outside and steals a shotgun out of the police cruiser. Can you just do that? I've only seen this in movies and TV shows. But can you just go into a cop car and steal a 12 gauge? It's not locked up or anything? Okay. I guess we'll just go with it. And some time passes. We know this because it's daytime now. Look how observant I am. I should have been a detective. And Sarah Connor is introduced. The Sarah Connor. And I gotta say, I love the hair in this movie. It is massive. Can we try to bring back big 80s hair? I mean, let's just do it for like a month and see how we like it. I honestly don't think it could make things much worse. So I say we give it a shot. Big ass 80s hair. Let's do it. And Sarah is a young woman working as a waitress in a diner, and she's having a tough time. She's mixing up orders, and she spills someone's drink on them, and she's just really having a bad day. And some kid puts some ice cream in her pocket, which, I find unlikely. What kid is giving up ice cream? You know, maybe some broccoli or some green beans, but ice cream? You're throwing away ice cream? To be fair, it appears to be sherbet ice cream, and I might toss that at somebody too. As ice creams go, it's not the best. And a fellow waitress tells Sarah to look at it this way: in 100 years, who's going to care? Which is a nice reference, because if Skynet has its way, there won't be any humans to care in 100 years. But who's going to care about this in an hour? I mean, it's not like a travesty happened, a few disgruntled customers, and some ice cream in your pocket. I'm pretty sure you will live that down at some point. And elsewhere, the Terminator steals a car, and he goes to a gun shop. And the shop owner is played by legendary character actor Dick Miller. You might not know his name, but you definitely know this guy. Since 1955, he has appeared in over 120 movies. He's also been in a lot of TV shows, including guest appearances on Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. He was acting pretty much right up until his death at the age of 90 back in 2019. What an actor. What a guy. And once the Terminator has all the guns he needs, he ends up shooting poor Dick Miller. Tragic. And the Terminator now heads to a phone booth and throws some guy out, some guy who's very hairy and wearing overalls. The dude is annoyed, but he has no idea how lucky he is. And then the Terminator examines a phone book. Remember phone books? Well, believe it or not, they existed. And at some point, some of them had your phone number and your address in it. How insane is that? I mean, I don't even necessarily want people to know my social media handles, let alone my phone number and home address. But back then, it was all just out there. And the Terminator is obviously looking for Sarah Connor, and there are several in the book. And he plans to just kill them off one by one until he hits the right one. He heads for the first Sarah Connor on the list, and he knocks on the door. He asks for Sarah Connor. The woman says yes, and the Terminator shoots her dead on the spot. Double tragic. More like Sarah Goner, am I right? I always found this scene particularly disturbing because there's a bunch of toys outside and there's a kid playing nearby. It's pretty clear that this is not, that this kid is Sarah Connor's kid, or this Sarah Connor's kid, I should say. And I just think that makes it a little upsetting. You didn't have to do that, Mr. Terminator. If you want to kill Dick Miller, that's one thing. He dies in half the movies he's in. But leave the moms out of it. Look at me lecturing the Terminator. Stop shooting people, you fucking clanker. There, I sure told him. And the Sarah Connor sees the news report about another woman named Sarah Connor who was killed earlier today. She seems to dismiss it as nothing more than a disturbing coincidence. And then we get introduced to Police Lieutenants Ed Traxler and Hal Vukovich, played by Paul Winfield and Lance Hendrickson. Two legends, as far as I'm concerned. And they discover that a second Sarah Connor has been murdered. Now, we didn't see that one happen, but it's clear the Terminator has been busy. So naturally, they think this can't be a coincidence, and there must be a connection between the two killings, which of course there is. And Traxler takes a sip of a cup of coffee, and Vukovich tells him that coffee is 2 hours cold, and he put a cigarette out in it. And Traxler could not care less. He also asks Vukovich for a cigarette, even though he already has a lit one in his hand. So it's safe to say that Traxler might be a bit overtired. It appears that Sarah, our Sarah, is the next on the list. So they try calling her. But they get no answer. Sarah is out. And only her roommate Ginger and her boyfriend Matt are home. And they don't answer because they're too busy banging. And Traxler decides to let the press know about this. He figures maybe if it's on TV, Sarah will see it and she'll call them. Meanwhile, Sarah's date canceled on her at the last minute, so she decided to go out on her own. She told her roommate Ginger that she was going to a movie, but we never see her do that. She ends up at some sort of bar or restaurant eating a pizza. And for some reason, this does not seem like a place that would be serving pizza to me. But okay. She sees a news report about the second Sarah Connor that was murdered and how the police believe that there's a potential serial killer behind it. So naturally, Sarah is a little freaked out at this point. She tries to make a phone call to Ginger, but the phone doesn't work or something, or she can't get a hold of her. And there's this really weird, creepy guy that's just staring at her, like blatantly just looking at her. And I think Sarah is aware of this, and it kind of it amplifies the fear in Sarah that, you know, this Sarah Connor killer could be anyone. So she leaves. And the Terminator shows up at Sarah's apartment. But of course, he only finds Ginger and her boyfriend Matt. By this point, the sex is over. And Ginger is in the kitchen making some absurdly huge sandwiches with massive glasses of milk, as you do. The Terminator breaks into the bedroom where Matt is, and Ginger doesn't hear a thing because she's always got these headphones on. But this is long before noise-canceling headphones. This is like a 1980s Walkman. She should still be able to hear the commotion going on in the bedroom. Because the Terminator and Matt are fighting. Somehow, I don't know how Matt is not instantly killed, but he seems to be putting up a fight. He even gets thrown to the floor. He gets up and somehow manages to push the Terminator. I mean, how does one move a Terminator? It should be like trying to tackle a brick wall. Eventually, the Terminator drops him. But, I mean, let's face it. If this guy had lived, this Matt guy would probably have been a general under John Connor, the way he fought this Terminator. It's kind of incredible. And the Terminator shoots poor Ginger, and her sandwiches go flying. It's really tragic. I don't know why he didn't just shoot Matt. He could have done that, but I guess he wanted a chance to wrestle. And Sarah feels like she's being followed, and she is. Reese is on her tail. She ducks into some sort of club or bar called Tech Noir. And there's a song playing. It's called Burning in the Third Degree by a band called Tanny Kane and the Triangles. And Sarah leaves a message on the answering machine. She says that she thinks she's being followed, and she says exactly where she is. And she wants Ginger to come pick her up. And unfortunately, the Terminator is still in the apartment, so he hears all of this. He also finds some sort of student ID card with her photo on it. So now he's done killing random Sarah Connors. He knows what she looks like and where she is. This is not good. And Sarah has a pet iguana named Pugsley, and I hope someone is looking after him now that, you know, everyone is dead. And Sarah eventually gets through to the police, and Lieutenant Traxler tells her to stay put. They're on their way. He says that she's in a public place, so she'll be safe there until they arrive, which is a bold assumption. And the Terminator enters this club, but he didn't pay. So some bouncer tries to stop him, which is foolish. The Terminator just crushes his hand and keeps moving. And the song I mentioned earlier is still playing. The song was playing when Sarah got here, and it's still playing after the Terminator made his way from Sarah's apartment to this bar. It must be a very popular tune. And the Terminator slowly makes his way through the bar, scanning for Sarah, now that she knows what she looks like. Sarah knocks something over by mistake and goes to pick it up, and when she does, she just narrowly avoids being seen by the Terminator. Reese is here too, and he can be seen closer to the bar. No idea how he got in. I mean, he didn't pay either, I'm assuming, and the bouncer didn't attempt to throw him out the way he tried to get the Terminator thrown out. So I don't know. And the Terminator eventually sees Sarah. He walks up to her, and she has no reason to fear this guy since she thought Reese was the one following her. He points his gun at her, and the laser sight is aimed right at her forehead. I wouldn't imagine that a Terminator would need a laser sight to be more accurate. But whatever. He's using it anyway. It seems like he's about to fire, but Reese blasts him with his shotgun. There's a bit of a shootout between him and Reese, and the Terminator takes out an Uzi and reloads it before trying to kill Sarah once more, which is kind of bizarre. I mean, he could just jump on her and break her neck, but he takes the time to reload. And in doing that, Reese is able to shoot him several more times until he's temporarily down. Reese approaches Sarah and says, "Come with me if you want to live." They end up making a run for it. The Terminator gets up and chases them. Reese shoots the gas tank of a car, which causes it to explode, and the Terminator just leaps right through that explosion and ends up on the hood of the car that Reese and Sarah are now attempting to steal. It's a lot. And they manage to shake him off, and you can see he's missing his eyebrows, which I find unsettling for some reason. During their escape, Reese explains the situation to Sarah very directly. He really doesn't sugarcoat it. He says his name is Reese, and he's been assigned to protect her, and that she has been targeted for termination. Sarah is understandably confused, and she asks how that man could have gotten up after Reese shot him so many times. Reese says he's not a man, he's a machine. Cyberdyne Systems Model 101, part man, part machine. Outside, living human tissue, but inside, he's a machine. And it's always been a little confusing to me because, as I understand it, the Terminator underneath all the organic material is what's known as a T-800. You'll see him without his skin later on in the movie. But once they incorporate the living tissue, which I assume must be through some sort of cloning technology, that makes the T-800 become more like Arnold, and that's known as a T-101. Because it hasn't really changed anything about the Terminator's ability or anything like that. It's still a T-800, so it just looks human. Anyway, moving on. And Sarah says they can't make things like that yet, and Reese says not for about 40 years. Sarah tries to run from Reese, but he stops her and says this.
Just let me go. Listen and understand that Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
So, that's a lot to take in, but I think it's a pretty convincing argument. And I like how he says he doesn't know if he can stop it with these weapons. He makes that point. Because if this was his time, he'd probably have, one of the phased plasma rifles in the 40-watt range that the Terminator asked for in the gun shop. And maybe that can take down your average T-800 in just a few shots. But he doesn't have that. He's got 1984 weapons, and that's a problem. They end up switching cars, and Sarah asks why the Terminator wants to kill her. Reese explains that a few years from now, all this is gone. There was a nuclear war started by Skynet. It started out as a defense network. People trusted it to run everything. But eventually it got smart. And it was a new order of intelligence. It saw people as a threat, not just the ones on the other side. He said it decided their fate in a microsecond. And obviously to me, this movie is more relevant now than it was even in the 80s. This is like all the fears you hear about AI. Eventually, I don't think it's going to happen soon because I think AI is pretty stupid at this point. I think it's laughably stupid. But eventually, who the fuck knows? This could be a problem someday. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. Especially since we are currently asking this dumbass AI to run everything for us. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to lead to a nuclear war, but it may eventually be a problem. And Reese goes on to say that he grew up after the war in the ruins, hiding from the machines. He says people were rounded up and put in camps for orderly disposal, and he shows Sarah a barcode on his arm. So, I mean, he was one of them in those camps. And he obviously somehow escaped. But he says there was one man who taught them how to fight. He is finally getting to the point here. He turned everything around. His name is John Connor, Sarah's unborn son. So that's a lot to lay on anyone. Skynet sent this Terminator back through time to stop the savior of the human race from ever being born. And you might ask, why didn't they just send the Terminator back through time even further? Take out one of her ancestors at the turn of the century. There'd be even less resistance to a Terminator back then. And I think it's because it's a post-nuclear war. There are no real records intact. Remember, the Terminator didn't even know what Sarah looked like until he found a picture of her in her apartment. And Reese had an advantage because we'll soon find out that he had a picture of Sarah, so he knew what she looked like. So for the Terminators, Sarah is probably the only Connor ancestor that they're even aware of. Anyway, I'm being redundant. This is pretty obvious information, so moving on. They end up getting into another chase, but the cops get involved this time, and the Terminator crashes his car, and the police arrest Reese and take Sarah into protective custody. And the Terminator seems to have fled the scene, and I don't know why. I mean, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. The Terminator would not be deterred by cops. We'll soon see that he is definitely not deterred by cops. So I don't know why he wouldn't just continue trying to kill Sarah. Like, no matter how many people get in the way, why would he care? Who knows? In any case, he's gone for now, and they take Sarah and Reese to the police station. Sarah meets Traxler and Vukovich, and they tell her that Ginger and Matt are dead, which of course is very upsetting to Sarah. And they introduce a criminal psychologist named Dr. Silberman, and he is here to evaluate Reese to see if he is mentally insane. And meanwhile, the Terminator sneaks into an abandoned apartment. Or maybe it's not abandoned. He may have killed the occupant, since it seems like he's been here before. And he treats his wounds a bit, sort of. It's really more like repairs. And one of his eyes has been damaged. And I guess he can't see out of it anymore, so he cuts it out, revealing the glowing robotic red eye behind it. And if you look, you can see, I think, a tear rolls down his eye, his other eye. It's almost like he's hitting a nerve of some sort. It's very weird. I mean, this is a James Cameron movie, so you can't be too surprised if he intentionally added that little detail. And clearly this is some sort of puppet or animatronic mannequin of some sort, but I still think it looks great. I mean, you know, this is a relatively low-budget movie, even for 1984. If my information is correct, the average budget for a Hollywood movie back then was at least $15 million, and this movie was made for less than $7 million. So, obviously, that to me is very impressive. And, you know, the special effects in the sequel are much more impressive, but that came out 8 years after this, and it had a much bigger budget. And to me, I still think the effects in this movie are outstanding, especially for the time. And once he's all done, he puts his sunglasses on to cover up his exposed eye, and he sort of fixes his hair a bit and then leaves, which I think is a kind of a weird, vain thing for a machine to do, but whatever. And Reese tells the police and Dr. Silberman his story. They obviously don't believe a word of it, and to be fair, he does sound a little nuts. I mean, if we didn't know better, we'd think he's nuts too. He also explains that the time travel process doesn't allow for clothing because nothing inorganic will go through, which explains why they were naked when they arrived. It also means that the Terminator wouldn't have been able to time travel if he wasn't a cyborg version of the T-800. Traxler tells Sarah to get some rest. They know that there is still someone out there trying to kill her, but they tell her that there are 30 cops in this building, so she'll be perfectly safe here. Again, bold assumption. That also seems like a fairly low number of cops for a police station in the LA area, but whatever. The Terminator strolls on in, and he speaks to the cop sitting at the front desk, and he asks for Sarah Connor. The cop tells him that she's unavailable right now, and then the Terminator does this.
Look, it may take a while. You want to wait? There's a bench over there.
I'll be back.
One of the more iconic moments in this very iconic movie. But I love how it's just so unnecessary. Like, he didn't need to go get a vehicle and drive it through the station. He could have just reached into the police station's little booth, his little policeman vivarium that he's in, and folded this guy into a pretzel. Or he could have just shot him. But his CPU analyzed the situation and said, you know what? I'm going to make this a little theatrical. And now he begins shooting up the entire police station. He also cuts the power, so the lights go out. And Reese takes advantage of the distraction and knocks out a cop and frees himself. And he knocks out the cop by just giving him one knee to the gut. The dude must have had some serious inflammatory bowel disease or something, because he is knocked the fuck out. Maybe much like Traxler, he also drinks coffee with cigarettes in it. Who knows? And Traxler tries to shoot the Terminator, but he gets shot and he appears to be dying. Vukovich makes a vain attempt to avenge him by inaccurately firing this rifle at him. He also dies. Tragic, again. I also wonder if, Vukovich is an interesting name. I wonder if he was named after the 80s pitcher Pete Vukovich, who, he was a professional baseball player, pitcher, and he also appeared in the movie Major League. I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of weird connection there. Who knows? And Reese finds Sarah, and they're off to the races. And there's this really cool synthy music playing during this sequence, and in a lot of the action sequences in the movie. It's so 80s, and I just adore it. And they end up hiding out somewhere. Reese reveals that his first name is Kyle, and Kyle Reese has to be the most badass Kyle in cinema history. No offense to anyone named Kyle, but there aren't a ton of ass-kicking Kyles out there. It's either Kyle Reese from Terminator or Kyle from South Park. Those are the only two that I can think of off the top of my head. And Reese talks a little bit about John Connor and how he leads the resistance and eventually won the war for them. Reese says he would die for John Connor. And he also says that he volunteered for this mission. He says it was a chance to meet the legend of Sarah Connor, the woman who taught John everything he knows. Sarah feels overwhelmed by this. Understandable. She says that she's no legend. She's not a fighter. She can't even balance her checkbook. And Kyle delivers a message to Sarah from John.
Your son gave me a message to give to you. Made me memorize it. Thank you, Sarah, for your courage through the dark years. I can't help you with what you must soon face except to say that the future is not set. You must be stronger than you imagine you can be. You must survive or I will never exist. That's all.
And I always thought that was kind of a cold and emotionless message from a son to his mother. But perhaps that speaks to how much the war has hardened John Connor. And I think the key line in that message is that the future is not set. It can be changed. Judgment Day doesn't have to be inevitable, but that's a topic for another Terminator movie. And then we get another flashback. They end up falling asleep where they are, and we get a flashback or flash forward, depending on how you look at it, to Reese's wartime experience. You get to see how he lives, and it's not great. People are barely surviving. Kids are watching fire on TV, and that's not nearly as festive as a Yule log. And there's people crying in pain and children hunting for rats for food. It is grim. Reese takes out a picture of Sarah, no doubt given to him by John. Seems like he's just been given his time travel orders. And then there's some sort of attack. A Terminator begins shooting up the place. I believe this is a T-600. We hear about the T-600s and the T-800s, but I don't think a T-700 is ever mentioned. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Reese gets injured, and Sarah's photo burns up in the flames nearby. Once again, tragic. And back in 1984, some sort of janitor knocks on the Terminator's apartment door, and this happens.
Hey, buddy, you got a dead cat in there or what?
Fuck you, asshole.
And I always thought that was one of the more hilarious moments in the movie. He's just quoting something that one of the punks said to him earlier. He's learning from other people how to interact with them. And I love how you see a list of possible responses, and all of them are nicer than what he actually chose, which I think adds to the humor. You'll see more of this sort of adaptability by the Terminator in T2, obviously. But it's very cool that it was established as early on as this movie. If this Terminator were to survive this movie somehow, it would eventually learn how to at least behave more human. And that's why it's considered an infiltration unit. Anyway, Reese and Sarah end up hiding out in a motel. Reese heads out for some supplies, and he gives Sarah a handgun for protection, and I'm not sure why he would even bother. That handgun is not going to do shit against the Terminator, but maybe he's just leaving it behind for some moral support. Who knows? And while Reese is out, Sarah stupidly makes a phone call to her mother. Sarah has no doubt been in the news over this, so she probably figures her mother is worried. But she foolishly tells her mom where she is. She even gives her fucking room number. And of course, she's not talking to her mom. She is talking to the Terminator, who is simply mimicking her voice. And it seems as though the Terminator has actually killed Sarah's mom. So, I mean, this is just one tragedy after another in this movie. And Sarah just gave him her exact location. Real bonehead move, if you ask me. Reese comes back with some mothballs, corn syrup, ammonia, and a bunch of other supplies. And Sarah looks at it all and asks, "What's for dinner?" Which is kind of crazy. I mean, none of these items, other than perhaps corn syrup, are actually edible. And Reese answers her question about what's for dinner by saying plastique. Sarah still thinks it's food. She asks what's in it, and he says nitroglycerin, basically, but it's a bit more stable. He learned how to make it when he was a kid. So, obviously Sarah is hungry. We need to get her some real food before she starts chewing on mothballs and drinking ammonia. And after a while, they're still hanging out, and Sarah is understandably scared. She has doubts, and Reese tries to comfort her. She says, "Some legend. You must be disappointed." Reese says he's not. She asks him what the women in his time are like. And he says they're good fighters. And that makes sense because that's all he knows. That's all he's able to judge people by, is whether or not they're good fighters. And Sarah gets a little bit more specific and asks if Reese has anyone special. Reese says no, never. Sarah is somewhat shocked by this, and she feels sad and expresses sympathy for him. I mean, Sarah, the revelation that this guy has never been laid is not the saddest thing you've heard all day. You know? I mean, there have been way more tragic events that have unfolded throughout the course of this movie. And Reese says that John gave him a picture of her. He says he memorized every curve, every line. He came across time for her. He tells Sarah that he loves her. And Reese is immediately mad at himself for saying that. He regrets it. And he starts slamming the bombs they spent all night making into a bag, which seems kind of ill-advised. I mean, he told Sarah a few minutes earlier to be careful with them, but he's just throwing them in there without a care in the world. And Sarah approaches him, and she kisses him, and they start making out, and they eventually start having sex. It's a bit awkward. Reese has never done this sort of thing before, and I don't know. It must be a little overwhelming for him, but he's doing well. At one point, Sarah makes this face, so, you know, seems like Reese is filling in nicely for whoever stood Sarah up for her Friday night date. I mean, it's also going on for quite a while, so good for Reese. He's doing a great job. It's a little awkward, but it's a lot less awkward than my first time, that's for sure. And I'm not knocking Reese, but it is kind of crazy that he wore that drunk's soiled pants for the entirety of the movie and still managed to get Sarah to fall in love with him. That is kind of a miracle in and of itself. I mean, I've spilled honey mustard on my pants on a date, and I felt like it was pretty much over. So how he managed to power through this stinky disadvantage is beyond me. And if you're a sci-fi dork like me, your algorithm might have presented you with this meme at some point. And if you have seen it, well, it was me. It was my Mimi. So clearly, I've been thinking about these dirty pants in this movie for a while now. I mean, he has had so many opportunities to get new pants. Okay, maybe not so many, but in a situation like this, I think you have to go out of your way to get new pants. That's all I'm saying. It's a little gross. I hope he at least showered before they had sex. But even if he did, he still put the fucking pants back on right afterwards. So, like I said, I'm a bit of a germaphobe. I don't know what to make of this. It's bothersome to me. And they're packing up and getting ready to skedaddle. And they're kind of joking around a bit, very playful. And Reese smiles. I mean, holy shit, this guy can smile? It is amazing what getting laid can do for your spirits. I mean, that is probably the first time he's smiled in his entire life. And Reese hears a dog barking, which sets off some alarm bells in his head because in the future, they use dogs to detect Terminators. The Terminator shows up, and they end up making a run for it. They steal a car, and there's a big chase sequence. Kyle gets hit, but for the most part, the Terminator is missing every single shot, which you would think would be rare. I mean, you'd think a machine that was designed specifically to shoot humans could do it with pinpoint accuracy, but I guess not. And the Terminator ends up crashing his bike, and he gets run over by a truck. And then this happens.
Let's get out of here.
Get out.
Yeah, I mean, if a guy looks like that and tells you to get out, you probably would. No questions asked. And I think these makeup effects, again, look incredible. It's amazing how some of the stuff in this 1984 low budget science fiction movie looks better than most of the shit you see today. Make it make sense. I don't get it. I mean, I do kind of get it. Nowadays, all movies are rushed. They have deadlines to meet. Everyone has to get their movies out for the summer or whatever time period they want to get them out for. So everything is rushed, including the special effects and CGI, especially the CGI. But back then, they could take their time a little bit more. And the Terminator drives the truck after Sarah Connor, but Reese takes the opportunity to throw a bomb into the back of it. It explodes, and it seems like the Terminator is finally dead, but alas, he is not. He rises now without any skin or organic components. He is pretty much the standard T-800 at this point. Reese is hurt, but Sarah orders him to keep moving. Her status as a legendary fighter is beginning to shine through. And Reese is no slouch either in the badass department because he holds the Terminator off with nothing more than a pipe. He smacks the shit out of this thing. I mean, Reese is a real ass kicker. He's been shot multiple times in this movie, and he's still fighting. And there's something kind of tragically romantic about it because he's not just defending all of humanity with these desperate strikes. He's defending the love of his life right now, a woman he's traveled through time for and was only intimately involved with for a few short hours. My heart hurts for Kyle Reese. It really does. Eventually, the fight ends when Reese jams one last bomb into the torso of the Terminator. It explodes, blowing the Terminator in half. And Sarah Connor was close when this went off, and she's hurt. She pulls a piece of shrapnel from her leg, which she probably should have left in. You can bleed out from doing that, but she did it anyway, and she seems to be okay. She moves towards Reese and finds him dead. Very tragic. But she has no time to grieve because the torso of the Terminator begins to move. It starts crawling towards her, and it actually moved slightly in the background right before this happened. It's almost like we noticed it before Sarah does, which is very creepy. And it ends up following her through some kind of elongated hydraulic press machine. She makes it to the end of it, and then this happens.
You're terminated, fucker.
I mean, yeah, that would probably do it. I'm not sure how she knew what button to press, though, but that is very nitpicky, even for me. I'm also not sure how the Terminator didn't kill her, because its hand seems to be around her neck, so you'd think all he would have to do is squeeze.
All I have to do is squeeze.
But then again, it might be worth noting that that is the same arm that the Terminator was repairing earlier in the movie. So it may be damaged, and it may not have as much strength in it as he normally would. Honestly, James Cameron really is a genius because I am actively looking for things to nitpick about, and I can't find them. He has covered all the bases in this one. What can I say? And Sarah gets taken to a hospital, and I'm not sure how she's going to explain this. I don't know what her story is going to be, but whatever. We don't have to worry about that. And later, specifically November, so it's been about 6 months or so since all this happened, Sarah is driving on a remote road and pulls into a gas station, and she is visibly pregnant. She's recording a log for her son, John. She asks whether or not she should tell John about her father. She goes on to say that if you don't send Kyle, you can never be. She says a person could go crazy thinking about this. So, I mean, effectively, she just told John anyway through this recording that Kyle Reese is her father. I don't know why she's bothering to question it. She's telling him right now. And she says that in the few hours they had together, they loved a lifetime's worth, which is nice, but also very sad. And this is the official confirmation that Kyle Reese is the father of John Connor. And I think that is the wildest science fiction twist of this movie for sure, and one of the wildest of all time. I mean, at this point in time, in 1984, Kyle Reese hasn't even been born yet, and yet he is the father of this unborn John Connor. Sarah is right. A person could go crazy thinking about this. And Sarah is in Mexico at this point, not exactly sure where she's going, but while she waits for her gas tank to fill up, a kid approaches her and takes a picture of her. And of course, it is the exact photo that John will eventually give to Reese. Everything is wrapped up nicely in this little science fiction loop. And it should be enough to blow anyone's mind. It certainly blew mine when I first saw it. And the kid points to the distance and shouts something in Spanish. Sarah asks the gas station attendant what he said, and he says that he said, "There's a storm coming." Sarah says, "I know," and she drives off as the iconic Terminator music plays. And that's the movie. Overall, absolutely outstanding. I mean, it is one of the great science fiction movies of all time. It's about as iconic as it gets. Like I said earlier, it has horror movie elements too. It's not unlike a slasher movie with extremely high stakes. And I think this movie is, as great as it is, it's kind of been overshadowed a bit by Terminator 2. And it's easy to see why. I mean, if you tell me that Terminator 2 is superior to Terminator 1 in every way, I'm not even going to argue with you. I honestly don't know which one I would prefer personally. But I would say they kind of go together. I rarely watch one of these two movies without watching the other. They're a package deal as far as I'm concerned. Terminator 2 is perfect, and Terminator 1 is equally perfect. And I think the characters of Reese and Sarah are great. Everyone loves Sarah in T2. She is one of the great characters of all time. But I don't think we would appreciate her as much in that movie if it wasn't for Terminator 1. Humble beginnings are often a staple of heroes and their journey, or even anti-heroes. And I think it was important to show how Sarah starts off as nothing more than a young girl waiting tables in LA. It makes her all the more relatable when things start to get tense. And in the credits for the movie, it says acknowledgement to the works of Harlan Ellison, which is somewhat controversial. I think most people are aware of this, but Harlan Ellison wrote a short story in the 1960s. I believe it was called Soldier from Tomorrow. And that was adapted into a 1964 episode of The Outer Limits that was simply called Soldier. And there are a lot of similarities between this movie and that story. And Harlan Ellison famously took issue with that, which is not a surprise because Harlan Ellison famously took issue with almost everything. He was a very combative guy. And James Cameron did an interview which didn't help things where he said that he ripped off some old Outer Limits episodes. So at that point, it seems like he was almost legally obligated to give credit to Harlan Ellison. And obviously, the first two Terminators are the best. I don't think anyone is going to argue about that. But I recently watched all the Terminator movies, which honestly, I don't recommend doing. There are some real clunkers in there. But I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Terminator Genisys from 2015. It was a movie I didn't feel all that great about when I first saw it, but after rewatching it, I feel like it's better than people think. It feels like a movie that was almost totally forgotten as soon as it came out. But I watched it again, and honestly, I think there are some good ideas in it. The biggest problem with it is that it's really miscast. The actors couldn't have been more wrong for their roles, honestly. I mean, the actor who plays Kyle Reese, I like him, but he's not Kyle Reese. Emilia Clarke is great too, but she's not Sarah Connor. And John Connor was also fairly terrible in that movie. But other than that, I think it does a good job of sort of updating the Skynet tech into what is more like modern AI. It just begins to take over. It's introduced as a piece of software that functions sort of like the latest and greatest social media platform. And everybody wants to get their hands on it. It's not a flawless movie by any means. But I think after 11 years, it deserves a second look. A lot has happened in the world that makes this seem a little more plausible to me. I also like how Arnold plays a Terminator that has genuinely learned to care about Sarah Connor. Like I said, definitely not a perfect movie. It might not even be a good movie, but I think it deserves to be re-examined. And I would say that it is the third best Terminator movie. A distant third, no doubt, but third best nonetheless, at least for me. I also think the Terminator's TV series is vastly underrated, and it's such a travesty that it was canceled after a season-ending cliffhanger. I mean, that is just entertainment malpractice as far as I'm concerned. But I guess my point is that the first two movies are perfect, but there are still some decent Terminator entries out there. I do still think the most recent one, Dark Fate, was terrible, though. I stand by that for sure. But I think I've yapped incoherently for long enough, wouldn't you say? I should definitely wrap this up. Let me know what you think of the Terminator. And until next time, take it easy.
Let's get out of here.
Get out.